Hey yo, welcome to the Godcast.
I hope y'all are buckled up because things are about to get weird.
I don't understand why you chose me.
You want to change the world, son. So do I.
Where are we at in terms of history on the timeline? Where are we exactly? I'm just trying to uncover the truth and bring forth what I can see as the truth. The Bible seemed to be predicting more things than any other conspiracy theory type information. Look, one thing's for certain, that there is so much power in the name of Jesus Christ. That I know for sure.
Welcome to Godcast.
Welcome to Godcast.
The Goodness Over Darkness.
The Goodness Over Darkness podcast.
Here is your host.
Here's your host, Emmanuel Kingman.
Emmanuel Kingman.
Welcome to the light.
Welcome to the light.
It's showtime. What is going on, everybody? I'm your host, Emmanuel Kingman, and welcome to Godcast, the Goodness Over Darkness podcast. I am here with my beautiful, lovely, always the charm, Mimi.
Hello.
Hello, my love. Happy
Hello.
birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to Mimi. She just had her birthday over the weekend. Another year older. And we had her oyster roast, 12th annual oyster roast this past weekend, and it was the best one yet. To me, anyway. I was only here for the second one. Yeah, it was amazing. So we'll get to that in a moment, but today's special guest was Matthew Landman. Matthew is the creator of Frankenskies the movie. He is the author of the website actualactivist.com. When I say author, maybe the owner, creator. Also, he sells EMF protective gear on sparrowgear.com, and he knows a lot of stuff. He's very deep into his understandings of the different things that we talked about tonight, and there's much more about him that we just didn't have time for, but off the air we talked about things, and he just knows a lot of different things about what's happening in our universe. And anyone who is new to the show, guess what? The weather's being controlled, and you're about to find out in this episode. It's going to be a stepping stone for you to learn how that's happening. We just watched his movie this past Friday, so just a few days ago, Frankenskies the movie, which is free, which is on frankenskiesthemovie.com. Everybody can go there and watch his movie for free, and it is really, really well done. What was your take on his movie when we were watching it?
It's just very interesting. That's what I'll say.
It was definitely very interesting. The way that it's set up and designed is that he shows different news clips. He shows different things, videos that really talk about all these different things, and it's just the most bizarre things that, I mean, it would be bizarre to someone today who thinks that the government's here to protect them. If they hear some of these things.
Anybody left that still thinks that?
Oh, many. Yeah, millions of people in these United States. I'd say probably more than half the people still are indoctrinated completely. But so any one of them that would just hear that the weather's controlled would seem outrageous, but it was big time on the news, these things all throughout decades, the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. These were, it was all over the place. Also, he gets into different experiments that the U.S. military was conducting on its own citizens in St. Louis. Similar thing that they did in Vietnam with Agent Orange, which is also in his movie. There is a lot to this weather manipulation, weather control, chemtrail, contrail type of stuff that's going on in our world. It's unbelievable when you just hear it from the perspective that the weather just happens. I mean, when we start to get into all the different hurricanes, all the different anomalies that have been happening as of the recent years, to say that the government is doing this, the army, the military, I mean, is doing this to its people, that maybe Texas this past winter where it froze over and people died because of how cold it was. I mean, that is war. That is war against your own people, if that is true. I mean, I don't know if it'd be called civil war if it's the government doing it to its own people, because it's not two governing factions that are actually fighting to be called civil war, but that's exactly what it would be. It's wild to think about, but I mean, what else can you call it? You know, it's wild.
Weaponizing weather.
Yeah, weaponizing weather. It's a pact that I don't know if the UN was involved in this pact, but the countries around the world made a agreement that they would not use weather to for warfare. They wouldn't use it, but that they could use it on their own people. And that's okay. That they could do it to themselves, just as long as they don't do it to others, it'd be okay. It was a slogan in the Vietnam War, was actually to make mud, not war, which was referring to making it rain in Vietnam so that they didn't war with each other. It was just complete mud in the jungle.
Who do I need to write to get some snow for Christmas?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I don't know to what degree they're controlling the weather. I don't know if they're controlling the temperatures. But they're obviously controlling the clouds and cloud seeding. They're manipulating the rain and precipitation. They're blocking out the sun, so I guess that would be some kind of temperature control. Who knows really of what the complete scale of what they're doing and what they're putting in our atmosphere. I mean, I doubt that even the humans that are running these types of things aren't even aware of the full magnitude. Everything's compartmentalized. And maybe they're not even human. Maybe they're just pretending to be human. Maybe they're just projections, low frequency demons that are being projected at different places, and they're just tricking these humans into thinking that they can actually hurt them, but they can't do anything. You know, I have that psychedelic trip where I saw the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, and he roared at me, and it turned from a lion's face to, then I saw it was a dragon, had the bear's claw, you know, exactly as described by Paul in the book of Revelations of Jesus Christ. And I just laughed because I realized it couldn't do anything. It roared at me and was like, what? That's all you got? Like, what, you're going to try to scare me? And that's really all they are. They can't do anything to us. They can only trick us into doing it to ourselves or doing it to others. So don't be afraid when the alien invasion occurs. It probably will be something physical, but there will also be things that are non-physical that are going to try to scare us. So I would not be afraid of that at all. It just isn't something that it's just a test of your courage to some degree. And I'm not saying go out there and be psychotic and think that you're invincible, but I'm just saying if an alien invasion occurs, trust God. Trust that God will guide you to where you're going because you are eternal. And even if you are to physically die, you still live on. We don't want to physically die. Obviously, we want to live out our lives joyous and peaceful and loving. But just have trust, have faith that all will be okay. So back to the birthday bash. Did you want to get into any specific parts about all the different things, all of the happenings that have occurred around here lately?
Oh, what happenings are we talking about?
Well, I don't know. You wanted to do an episode yesterday, so
Well, that time has passed.
okay.
That time has passed. It's a bittersweet day today because, Nick goes home and party's over. Cleanup is done.
Yeah, your son
Pretty much
is
done.
here for the weekend. He lives not with us, a couple
Right.
hours away, so he came up to
He's a
visit.
grown up.
Right. And he came to visit. Last year he
Yes.
visited as well. He brought a friend with him
Mhm.
this time, so that was nice.
Yes, he brought his boyfriend with him this time.
Yeah,
So that was nice.
right. We got to meet. Well, I got to meet him, and
Mhm.
getting
Took some
to hang out with
family
him.
photos.
Yes, we had a family
Had
photo
to
shoot.
squeeze in a lot of stuff. And then there's like the people that couldn't come or didn't come, people I really wanted here. But it was still a good time.
And there was a lot of people here too. I think there's probably 40 plus people.
Probably so much good food.
Yeah, so much. Yeah.
So much.
We had multiple fires going. I fixed up the fire pit. I completed the fire pit, I'll say.
Ooh, and let's talk about tomorrow.
What's tomorrow?
The food forest guy will be here tomorrow. Mario will be here in
yeah.
person to come check out the yard and the space.
Yeah,
and
Mario from Food Forest
he's
Abundance.
going to try to do some drone photos for us since
Yeah, we
we
couldn't
had an
get any.
issue this weekend with doing some drone photos, but
Right.
that's exciting.
Yeah, we're getting the food. And it's interesting that Matthew Landman started his awakening journey as becoming an organic farmer.
Kind of like Dan the Manifester,
Yeah, I
it's
thought
two
of that right
people
away.
that kind of gave up everything to just go work
Yep,
on a farm.
just like that.
Hey, teach me some things.
And we're getting a food forest put in our yard. So we're going to
Mhm.
have to learn some things.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll have to have Matthew on again to talk about the farming aspect.
Yeah.
So I plan on doing that. I don't know exactly when, but I plan on having on several people.
Well, Farm Expo.
Yeah, farming, different things. The homie Romy from Rising from the
Alright.
Ashes podcast. He's
Okay.
knowledgeable. Maybe have Jim Gale on again.
Absolutely.
Get Dan.
Probably Mario
Dan the
himself, since
Manifester
he'll
on.
be the installer. And he is very knowledgeable.
Yeah, we'll see how everything goes. We'll definitely be recording it, different things. I don't know if what exactly we're going to be able to do, and it's not going to be till March. The end of March is when we're going to be getting it in once spring arrives here.
We'll
Get through the
see.
winter, so that'll be a fun time. Yeah, and also we're going to be grandparents in March.
Yes.
Which is fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm so excited for a little baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The March. So I was just thinking today that the month of March will be
It's full of all of my kids have birthdays in
Yeah.
March, and now my children are having children born in March.
Yes. And what I was thinking about this morning was I was listening back to the roundtable that I was a part of, Josh Monday. So Josh Monday's Christian and Conspiracies. Josh and Jason Monday, they host that show. They're good friends of the show. I went on there for a roundtable. They invited me on with the guys from Rising from the Ashes podcast, as well as Mark Steves from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy and altmediaunited.com. So all of us were on there. I listened back to it this morning, and we're talking about Gog and Magog, which is a biblical name, right? And then we get into how George Bush Sr. and Jr. that was their Skull and Bones names. And what's Skull and Bones magic number? 322. And what is this upcoming March will be 322. So I expect March to be a wild month, but it's also going to be wild for us in a very positive way. So I think that everything has its equal and opposite, and we have to just stay calm and grounded and understand and trust in God, and that everything else will fall in place. But I expect 322 to be something big that this upcoming March. And it'll also be 7 years after I was arrested. So, my transformation of everything will be right around that time. But anyway, there are different topics for different days. Just interesting stuff that's happening in and around our lives. Is there anything else that we should get into before we say bye for the intro?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, make sure you guys check out Matthew Landman, his social media stuff. I'll have everything linked in the description best that I can. Make sure you go to frankenskiesthemovie.com and watch the movie. It's free. It's about an hour and a half, I think. Just go watch it on your phone, tablet, computer, whatever. Just go watch it for free. Check out actualactivist.com. Check out sparrowgear.com. That's SPEROGEAR.com, where he sells, they're like Faraday cages for your cell phone, little bags that you put your cell phone in, double lined with silver, because silver is the best to thread through material and it blocks out all the signal that comes into it. And if the double liner doesn't work for you, then he's suggesting that Verizon is the cell phone company that is putting the most 5G signal out, and the iPhone is the highest receiver of it. So he suggests to get a new phone, maybe a new provider if need be. He didn't say that. I'm saying that about the provider. To get something that doesn't have as strong of a signal, so that the double line bag can work for you, because the single line bags worked up until the lockdowns occurred in 2020. So once that happened, then he had to double line everything, and that worked up until the Delta variant became big, which I got hit with, Mamie got hit with, our kids, everybody we know we were all affected with this radiation poisoning symptoms of not being able to smell or taste and getting sick, and just we weren't our normal selves because of whatever poisoning. He said Georgia seems to be the hot spot, the first ones that are rolling things out, and Georgia has tons of Freemasons here. As I talk about often, you can't trust anybody who has taken the oath, because the first thing that they do is protect the oath. That's above everything else. Protect the oath, protect the other members of that have taken the oath. That's their number one thing. So you cannot trust anyone, and anyone that is just thinking that it's a good old boys club where they drink and all, it probably is for them, and they probably don't have any secrets to tell, but they still have taken the oath to not tell anything. So you can't trust any of it. Even people that come out, Altian Childs, for example, the winner of X Factor in Australia, he's come out against and quote unquote revealing things when he doesn't actually show anything new. He just shows things that have been talked about. He's taken the oath. So you can't trust anyone that's taken the oath. That's all I'm saying. So make sure you check out all of Matthew Lamb. So he doesn't just have the bags. I wanted to say that he also has hats that say Sparrow on them. So make sure you guys go, get your gear. Instead of wearing a tinfoil hat, wear a silver lined hat. I don't have one, or I would show you, but he has some new colors in as well. He was showing us, and he's a really humble, really great guy, and he's just trying to do his best to make this world a better place. He's actually getting in and doing the things. And he said for a while he sat back and was like, okay, other people are doing it. And then he realized that they weren't really doing all that great a job, and he decided to do something about it. And I mean, that's kind of what what has driven me as well, that other people are doing it, but I can still be doing something. So that's why we all do this. All right. So make sure you stay tuned at the end of the episode for a preview of the next episode. Check out my website, emmanuelkingman.com, for any energy work. And like, share, subscribe, comment, do something to interact with this post or this episode if you like it. And that will really help other people come to see this show. So if you know anybody who any of my episodes will help, send it to them. Just, hit a like if you have a like, rate and review if you have that option. I mean, this show is on every single platform that there is, basically. Just go ahead and interact with it in some way if you like what I'm doing, and it'll help the show. And you can also donate if you want to donate on my website. You can go ahead and hit the donate tab and donate there. You can just send it directly to my PayPal if you'd like to. That's up on my website as well. Okay, so without further ado, here is Matthew Landman. Hello, everybody. On today's episode, I have on a guest who is an activist on the front lines of changing the world. Through his film, he is helping to awaken the masses to the truth of what's happening in our own skies. He is creator of the movie Frankenskies. Everybody welcome Matthew Landman to the show. Welcome to the show, Matthew. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much. I love the canned applause. That's great.
Yes, I love giving my audience an applause, especially someone who has made such a wonderful movie as Frankenskies. And Mimi and I actually just watched this past Friday night. We watched it, and it was really, really well done.
Thank you so much. And I'd love it if you give me your address in our email conversation. I'll send you guys some DVDs to put under the Christmas tree or whatever.
Oh, that would be so amazing. Thank you so much. You are doing some great things, and I've heard you on many podcasts before this. So this was the first time seeing the movie. And I got to tell you, from start to finish, the way that you use the different TV sets to, really get the decade in there involved. I mean, that's just brilliance to me. I didn't know what to really expect if you were going to come in and narrate, but the way you put it together, you're not even in it mostly, and you're just showing the evidence, and it's brilliant.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I could go into it for a while, but I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, but I ended up, because there wasn't film school in Virginia, I ended up going to business school. And when I finally did get to film school, I was a little older, and I hated documentaries that were just about the filmmaker, and their narration and their voice throughout and stuff. And it's like, I didn't want it to be about me. I'm not that kind of person. I hardly wanted to even be the dude making the movie or even be in it at all. But sometimes you got to put the pieces of the puzzle together a little bit, But I was very happy to not narrate it. I hope I can get away with that in the sequel, Frankenskies 2, but I'm not working with so much history. The Frankenskies, the first one, is a historical chronological timeline, expose or whatever, from 1920s to present, which was 2017. The Frankenskies 2 will be 2017 to present, which is only now 2021. I think it'll be released probably next year or the year following. So we'll see. Hopefully I don't have to narrate the next one.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that you will do an excellent job. And I look up at the skies often. And I remember a few years ago when I started waking up and I'm starting to talk about things on social media, people would say, oh, no, there's nothing happening in the sky. And now all the things that are happening, I don't see anybody talking about what's going on in the sky. It's like everybody's focus has really shifted. And there was maybe a period of time last year where it stopped for a good portion of different areas. I wasn't noticing as much in my own area, but this is probably one of the most important issues in our reality, because as we can see with, I don't want to say any words that might get us dinged here, but things that are being put into people's bodies, the number one way to get it in there is the oxygen we breathe. And the things that are being put in the sky, which your movie puts in, it was all news was talking about this. The different agencies were talking about this for a long time, like questioning it. And now all of a sudden it's just like, it's gone away. So okay, so before we get into that, how did you actually get started with all of this stuff, with Frankenskies, with looking at the skies? How did this journey kind of start for you?
Yeah, great question, and thank you, and a lot there to go off of. But for me, my personal journey is I'm a normal dude. Like I especially like the whole hero and people looking up to the director of the movie or whatever, or I'm just a normal person just like everybody else, and I don't want anybody to get caught up in that syndrome. I want everyone to get together and trust their instinct and intuition, not listen to me, but like watch the movie, please. But yeah, but you kind of got to snap back. I mean, I'm a normal guy, long story short, and I didn't come from any sort of privilege or money or anything, and I've had just under 50 jobs in my life.
Wow.
I mean, I think I'm in my last job right now as an activist, and the owner of the EMF clothing and apparel line, and film director, whatever. The activist wears many hats, but for my life, I was looking for my way, right? And I ended up going to school and moving to California from the East Coast. I grew up on the East Coast. Everyone talks about California. It's not what they say, people. It's so glorified. It's so glorified. And I thought LA would be like New York, like I wouldn't need a car and stuff. I could just get around on the subway or something. It is not at all what the luxury. Either way, I ended up in Southern California, and then I went back to school finally after about a dozen cross-country trips. Grass is always greener. I kept moving and moving back and forth, back home to Northern Virginia, DC area, and then back to San Diego. And then finally I ended up in Northern California. And really, I just wanted to get away from the drought. I couldn't believe that Southern California was this desert oasis and all those people lived there, and they were such a strain on the environment. Literally, the Colorado River is supposed to delta into the Sea of Cortez, this beautiful delta. It's supposed to be this river delta that's this wetlands and gorgeous. It doesn't even make it there. It doesn't even make it to the Native American tribal lands that is supposed to have the Colorado River run through. This huge river, after it goes through the Hoover Dam and gives water and power to Las Vegas, it goes to Southern California, and I mean, like all of it, it doesn't even make it to the ocean. It's crazy. It's not sustainable. Either way, I wanted to go somewhere where there was sustainable, like rain and farms and stuff, and I ended up in Northern California for grad school. That was my way out, because I had done pretty well, and before I could just get more student loans. And so I went to go get a master's in business in a school where I could go to film school. Got out of school with a film degree and a master's in business administration, and I got a job in finance, another crappy job. And I was a finance analyst, and after leaving that job, I thought that I could work in another office with my master's degree and work for like a nonprofit and do something good, with my education. And even in the nonprofit, it was totally bogus in so many ways. And that sun was out there shining the whole time. And I was just like dying for something different. And when my girlfriend or friend at the time was like, "You want to come work on this farm?" I dropped everything. I mean, I literally like just threw in the towel and was working on the farm the next day. And on the first day, I learned so much. I learned that I didn't know diddly squat, for one. You think you know everything. Everybody thinks they know so much. And even
How
now,
old were you at that time?
Early 30s, like 32, 33. And
Okay.
I had graduated top of my class with an MBA, and I had so many jobs and walks of life. And I thought that I knew so much. And day one, I learned that potatoes grow potatoes. And I say this a lot, and some people are like, duh, and some people are like, oh, wow, really? And it's quite the moment to realize that your indoctrination and your like city boy mentality. I didn't grow up in the country, but I didn't grow up in the city. I thought I knew so much. I just can't even stress it enough. But I learned that there's varieties of foods and how to grow all these things, and about natural farming. And we grew everything on this organic farm, but people don't realize that organic is just growing food without all this like crazy poison that you got to buy anyways, and then toxify everything and kills your biome of your soil and all this stuff. It's like growing organic is just growing food with, you know, chicken poop and whatnot. And it was an amazing opportunity to see all this stuff. And I got so grounded that I was pretty much connected to the earth and sky and whatnot. And that's where I woke up to chemtrails. I didn't know, I knew about 9/11. I definitely didn't know about the other stuff. I knew about fluoride, but I didn't know about the inappropriate medical, you know, freedom stuff that we're dealing with, especially right now. And I saw stuff in the sky, didn't know how to reference it, and I didn't think anything of it. And later down the road, and this is so important, my friend planted the seed of the word chemtrails. And thank God this isn't like a super dirty word, because one day it will be, and then we won't even be able to say chemtrails on the internet anymore. But right now it's just like, it'll get us a little Wikipedia thing on the bottom explaining to us that that's not a real word, and what a contrail is and all this stuff. And that polarized dualistic argument of like, oh, we're going to get an argument, is it a chemtrail, is it a contrail? There is no contrail. We could go into that forever, but I've learned that by much depth and research, and I'm the chemtrail dude, you got to trust me, but basically these engines, they started up off in the 1940s by Rolls-Royce, 1950s General Electric, 1960s Rolls-Royce, and now they're on like every jet plane out there. And on 9/11, the passenger jet that slammed into the Pentagon, it really wasn't a jet, but the supposed jet, the engines, each one Rolls-Royce, titanium and steel, 2 tons of titanium and steel each, they slammed into the Pentagon, disappeared. Like the windows didn't even break. But these 2-ton engines are called turbofans. They're fans that are just spinning and pushing air to create lift over wings. It's like a propeller, like you see on a plane, on the nose of it. There's no hot air being blasted out. So all of that is just a charade to confuse us. And that's all uplifted by this Edward Bernays, trust your doctor, trust the specialist nonsense that we've all been socially engineered into. So it's like, I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not an aeronautical engineer. I can't wear many hats. I didn't get educated like that. I can't think about that. But at the end of the day, it's really simple stuff. You know, so to get on a tangent, sorry, but I woke up on a farm, and then slowly but surely, I went down the rabbit hole, okay? And when I saw, like, I was really upset and started making flyers, and I was like, I did have that activism passion in me. You know, I'm a metal monkey in Chinese astrology, and I'm a Scorpio, and so maybe I was just like upset, you know? And I didn't get any traction with my little presentation that I ended up giving and my flyers and stuff. And then once I really dug, I found that there were other activists already in the space, making movies, documentaries, and whatnot. And I was like, all right, someone else is doing it, whatever. I'll let them do it, because I wasn't getting anywhere with it. And that mentality lasted me a couple years at least. And then finally, like, I talked to so many people that were like, what's chemtrails? And I was like, wait, you don't know, and you don't know, and nobody knows. I was like, dude, the activists are not doing a good enough job. And then when I rewatched the movies, and I was like, well, there's reasons why, you know, different reasons why I don't think that the masses or whatever are waking up to this. And so I devoted my life to it. You know, I learned first, like, there was a plan for me. I believe God has a plan for me. And first I learned that there's, was able to be shown that there's evil on earth. You know, that's a really deep story, but it's sometimes we're gifted with the depths of hell in our life just to learn where we're at in this world and what's what, and that there is good and angels and God and stuff too on the flip side of that. And when I learned that there was darkness, I knew that I wasn't that, and that I was the light, and I'm here to fight for the light. And I devoted my life to chemtrails. And you know, at one point I was passing out chemtrail flyers, asking God, like, am I going to be doing this my whole life? God, just passing out chemtrail flyers. But it evolved, and I just trusted, and I can't, like, I would never look back, and I can't stress enough that sometimes you just got to let go and trust, especially nowadays. Things are in such a shift that God's got your back, you know, kind of thing.
Well, I love that story. And one of the things that I liked most about you is how humble you are. This movie's free. You try promoting it everywhere. You know, like, just watch it. It doesn't, you know, I don't want any of the credit. I just want people to know what they're doing. And how you just finished that story right there. It was so beautiful that you have a calling of sorts, and you are answering it by doing exactly, you seem to be in such a peaceful state. You're obviously very knowledgeable. We were talking a little bit before here, and pretty far down the rabbit hole. A lot of people, they tend to stop at different areas and then go back to their lives, but you really jump headfirst into the farming and all this. So, it's very refreshing to talk to somebody who has been doing this for 8 years or however long you've been doing it for, and you have gone from we've all been there, that the ego is all the way up here, that we know everything, we're king shit, and then boom, drop down, and now doing God's work. Just it's an incredible story.
And to be clear, I may sound calm and whatnot, and I am pretty grounded at this point, but at first I was so not grounded, it's not even funny, man. I thought that I was gonna like explode into light and like save humanity or something. I was sometimes the truth can be really dismantling. And I mean, they've got different quotes, like first it pisses you off and then it sets you free and all these sort of things. But it's not a swift kick in the face for everybody. Sometimes
Right.
it's this slow, depressing, like, I mean, it's a crazy, wild journey, the truth. And once you do get on the vibration of seeking truth and asking and really, asking for truth and getting on that frequency the best you can, other truths start to become self-evident, and you start to learn about, frequency in it of itself, and you start to be a more genuine, authentic, human being and what have you. So the truth
And
is
it
something.
becomes easier to handle. I think everybody, like you're saying, wakes up and they're all of a sudden they got to run down the halls screaming the good news, as Ram Dass says. You run down the church aisles telling everybody, come on, this is beautiful. So I think we all have that, and that's why at the end of my episode I always ask my guests, what is your grounding technique? Because I want my audience to get grounding techniques from everybody, to figure out how they can ground themselves, because it is the most important thing in the awakening process. Is we are so easily, because it's so dramatic, it's such a shift in consciousness, that you go from being asleep to awake, that you'll start believing anything, that channeling, psychedelics, meditations, all these different things that I've partaken in myself, we can get led astray so easily. But it's the grounding that shows us, what's really happening in our lives. Am I actually saving the world when I meditate and I'm taking psychedelics and I feel like I'm doing these things, but then I look at my regular life and it's like, well, I work this little job, I'm not really doing nothing, I'm not involved in my daughter's school, I'm not involved in growing plants and bettering the environment, I'm not actually doing anything, but I'm lost in the astral world thinking that I'm doing all these things. So it's super important for us to stay grounded, and that's how you become, even though you and I might have more knowledge than we ever did before on these topics, because we stay grounded, it doesn't bother us too much, because we have faith and trust that everything's happening as it's supposed to, it's unfolding, and we're going to be, as long as we listen to God, we'll be put in our positions to do our work.
Amen to that. I love that. Did you want me to answer the grounding question?
We'll get to that at the end.
Okay,
yeah,
I love it.
We'll do that at the end. So, when you said, okay, I'll get to that later though. Not right now. I'll circle back to that if we get a chance.
Later. Okay.
Yeah, if we get a chance. So what I wanted to get to was, before we started, you were talking about Georgia. I'm in Georgia, and you talked about Georgia being a very special kind of place right now with all the frequencies. Now I want to show you, I took a picture of this in my sky today. Oh, is it not going to work? Maybe it will. Let's see. Can you see this picture on here?
The lampposts.
Yes. So the sky all day today, I mean, you have up here, it's just like one big cloud, and then down here it's blue. It's there, and there's no clouds anywhere. I mean, it's just a completely obvious, like, fake thing to me, that it's coming off of this point right here, and there's probably another point like this all the way on the other side, that it's just like kind of expanded from there. And when I look at the sky, I look up so often. I'm a truck driver, and I look up at the sky so often. I can so easily detect these fake trails to the real ones. And there was something super interesting in your movie that 12 new clouds were introduced a few years ago, which is something like completely unheard of. What is your take on what is going on in our skies?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because you talk a lot about divine planning and God and whatnot. And I wanted to come out with that movie so bad, brother. I thought I was serving my purpose and time was of the essence and all this sort of stuff, which is like the exact opposite of where I am now with Frankenskies 2. And I'm like, okay, let it all unravel. You know, if they say climate change lockdowns, I've got more footage, you know, I got to do this right, you know. But for, for the first one, I kept trying to come out with the movie, and I got like some bogus editor helped me, and he ended up like some footage got lost, and like so many different things, so many different obstacles, right? Obstacles, boulders in my path, mountains in my way, and I didn't release the movie till like a year later. But right when I was about to come out with the film, Frankenskies 1, geoengineering, which is spraying chemtrails in the sky, was launched as an idea through the media to dim the sun to save us from climate change. And then they immediately, when they start saying we're going to spray the skies to save you from climate change, and at that exact same time, the narrative came out to cover their asses because of decades of treason. The narrative came out and said, we've got actually new clouds, you know, they're scrambling, right? Basically, oh, we've got to add new clouds to the vernacular, to the cloud dictionary or whatever. So now 12 new clouds. And when I grew up, it was like 4 or 5 clouds or something, you know, in science.
I remember like 3 or 4 when I was in
Cirrus,
middle
cumulonimbus. Yeah. They definitely didn't have all these names. But now, because of all the different action in the sky, they have to have 12 new clouds, and each one looks like different variations of chemtrails and HARP and whatever, right? And it's so in your face that people actually laugh. By the time someone gets to the end of Frankenskies, they're laughing at the news reporter showing this absurdity, you know? And it was coordinated through all the different media outlets to release these new clouds. And I was able to see it and film it and put it in the movie just a couple months before the movie is actually officially released, which is, it was amazing. It was a blessing. So now.
So what year was that when they came out with them?
That was like fall 2016, and then on into January 2017. And wow. I was like, oh God, that's what you were doing. Thank you, God. Because I was just like asking God what the heck was going on at one point. I mean, eventually so many things get in your way that you're just like, can I, you know? And then when things are really flowing, you can tell too, synchronization and whatnot. So what's going on in our skies, you asked, is the weather is engineered, and a lot of experimentation is going on, and there's a lot of programs going on at once. NASA has a chemtrail program. NASA has a budget of $50 million per day. They pretty much lie through their teeth on every single chance they get. And they have a chemtrail program called CARE, which is ironic, CARE, Charged Aerosol Release Experiment. They have a fleet of planes and drones and patents that go back decades, barium release rockets and all this. And they spray publicly barium, aluminum, and strontium to mix it together and charge it differently to make noctilucent clouds. They say they need to use the atmosphere as a laboratory, quote unquote, to experiment with these cloud makings. And there's also the Department of Energy and the CIA and the stratospheric aerosol injections, and they've now called it solar radiation management. They demonize the sun and they call it radiation now, solar radiation, that we need to manage to save ourselves from climate change and global warming and all that. But I mean, there's just so much stuff ongoing in our sky. A lot of it's weather engineering, but it gets deeper. I think it's frequency control. You know, why do they spray in front of the full moon and then zap it with ground-based ionospheric heater stations? You see the haze ripple out into these fine ripples in front of the moon, in front of the setting sun, in front of the rising sun. You know, it seems like at the end of the day, they're trying to disrupt the light from our light sources, our download codes from getting to us, it seems like deeper spiritual stuff, is my deep answer to that. It just kind of depends on who you're talking to is the answer. I like to be grounded and level for whoever I'm talking to. So if it's my grandmother, I'm like, yeah, they're making it rain, making it not rain, whoever they want it to rain, they seed the clouds. And she's like, oh yes, cloud seeding. If you're old enough, you know about cloud seeding because it was just common terminology back in the day. But they kind of swept it under the rug, and now it's a conspiracy, even though they'll seed hydro dams and seed ski resorts and whatnot. But you want to seed the clouds coming over your farm, and that's a conspiracy.
Right. Or this is so amazing that back in the day, they've been doing this since the 1920s, and what happened in this is so incredible that they tell us that, or they make a law for each country can't use the weather for warfare, and now they make a law that says, oh, but you can use it on your own people, you can use it on your own country. Now this gets into an area where that seems like a civil war to me. It seems like the government is attacking its own people on its own lands, and it's moving things around. And if you tell someone that the weather is being controlled today, you look like a lunatic. But not that long ago, it was very commonplace that the governments, this was mainstream news, that the governments were trying to do these things for different reasons. It was, I think the Vietnam War was the phrase "make mud, not war," something to that effect, because they were just making it rain over and over so that they didn't have to actually fight, so that soldiers weren't being killed or whatever. There's so many different things to it. Do you know when the warring, using the weather to war, first started, and then when it was made illegal and sent to do it on your own people?
Well, in 1914, this guy, Professor Hatfield in San Diego, was hired to see if he can make it rain. And he did. He made it flood, and he was sued for bursting dams. And that was the first time that it was well known that you could just make it dump rain in a drought just from
Do you know how he did it?
passerby. He built a tower 40 feet tall, and then as passing clouds went by, he sprayed chemical haze that quote seed the clouds. There's different dust, like chemicals, that you can put into dust form, and water will come to it and then make it heavy, make it drop, and make rain. There's also ways you can dissipate it. So the opposite of that, so this hydroscopic makes the there's silver was used especially silver iodide, and what it is just the way that it is, the size of it, it acts as a little seed, and the water is attracted to it, and then it gets heavy and it falls out. Aluminum, it actually is the opposite, and it spreads out the water and makes it not couple together and fall out of the cloud. So if you want,
So like my picture that I showed.
Yes, if you want a cloud to not drop any rain, you just spray aluminum on it, and it can be, escorted somewhere else to make it drop rain when you give it the other chemicals and what have you. So after this, Professor Hatfield in San Diego, the world knew that they could engineer, weather and whatnot. And the Soviet Union and China watched as we developed our tools, and they were right behind us, just not as public. And so by the time we got to the Vietnam War, we had concluded that we could totally make it flood. And what's ironic is we dumped dry ice in the atmosphere to seed the clouds, and that is frozen carbon dioxide. So the Air Force uses carbon dioxide, dumps it in the atmosphere in mass to seed clouds, experiment with hurricanes, and all sorts of stuff like that. So if we're going to talk about any of that, they're putting it directly into the atmosphere in a frozen, intense form.
So are some of the chemtrails maybe dry ice?
Yes, it could be, but that would be pretty. I think they're pretty nefarious. I think that's pretty. That'd be like a very gentle version of. I would be very happy if they were dry ice at this point. So I mean, just saying. So then, come Vietnam, the U.S. Air Force Operation or Project Popeye, which is very easily researched. Popeye is on the CIA website and everything. They made the monsoon season extended and just kept the rain coming and tried to flood out the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was a trade route for the weapons supply chain and whatnot for their enemy in Vietnam. So after that, the entire world came together in the United Nations. They voted like 58 or 52 countries to 0. Every country voted unanimously that weather war could not be done. You know, if one country starts weather warring on the other one, it's going to disrupt the whole world's hydrological process. And then you got drought in Sudan, and you just can't, or whatever, you just can't do it. So it's covertly done. We do it to Iran right now. We make drought over there. Even in Frankenskies, the movie, the news reporter's talking about how the president of Iran, President Ahmadinejad, is calling us out on it. It is ongoing, but it's covert. So the caveat was, yeah, you can experiment, you can experiment on weather modification, but of course it's got to be over your own land, right? Which kind of makes sense, but not to the degree that they do it, which is like people are actually waking up. This is amazing because the more the darkness shows itself, it's all like God's plan because people are waking up in mass. So a few years back, there was a hurricane, Joaquin in South Carolina, and there was a directional arm created off this hurricane, one of a kind atmospheric river fire hose, and it created one in 1,000-year floods, crazy floods in South Carolina like 5 years back, and it was this engineering that never existed before. The hurricane is moving along, and this arm comes off it. It's directionalized, weaponized, and it attacks South Carolina, and that's one thing that I noticed that was like completely treasonous. You shouldn't be doing that to your people. So recently, as people are continuously waking up, as the nonsense continues to expose itself and whatnot. And what's amazing about the truth, the people have contacted me. 2017, Frankenskies came out. It's been seen by a few million people around the world. People have contacted me and said, Matt, I would never have realized that all of this nonsense was BS in the past couple of years if I didn't know chemtrails were real. Because you start to see it and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much BS in the world. Like, look at this going on. And then they put whatever in the front page of the newspaper. And you're like, okay, well, you're lying to me all day long about the sky. So how can I believe anything you say? But it's this vibration of truth, realizing that there's at least duality of lies and truth, that can really get us somewhere. So as we're waking up, they're bending the jet stream and they completely turned it at a right angle, did this polar vortex nonsense and attacked Texas like about a year ago or six months ago or whatever.
Yeah, you think that was an attack, that ice freeze?
A lot of people know it was. A lot of Texans saw manipulation in their sky. I can almost guarantee it was. The jet stream doesn't do that. It doesn't curve at right angles and then go straight down to Texas and blast them with ice. That was all an experimentation, a directionalizing weaponization of the jet stream, which is that's their MO. That's what they've been doing.
Does Organite actually cancel this out?
Organite's a nice idea, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if everybody was okay, so it's the human behind it, I believe. Okay, so Wilhelm Reich is amazing, and he created cloud busting and utilizing orgone to create these like orgone boxes and orgone accumulators. And that's where the technology of the organite pyramid and the organite stuff came from, right? This like layering of inorganic and organic material to create like a organic etheric pull of negative ions, basically to have this like toroidal kind of field of protection is the idea. I don't think that the pyramids work as well as people say. It's like I'm never losing my cell phone reception when I go near these pyramids. And I've got a meter that shows my EMF fields in the pyramid. I'm not necessarily on the same page as a lot of people with the whole organite thing. I think it's great, and I think that the human behind it we're very powerful creator beings. And I've had this click the other day, and is your girlfriend's name Mimi?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she'll dig this too. I had this click the other day, this download that we are like in God's image. We are creators. We are literally like, I don't want to say little gods. We are gods. We are like gods walking around here on earth in this plane. We have to be in truth, the vibration of truth, or the universe will not let us be creator gods. If we start to believe and resonate in falsehoods, then our vibration has these bits of like lies in it, then there's literally this like shut off valve, this like false stop where we can't be creator gods anymore. It like clicked. So they want us believing lies, so then we can't be gods. It's kind of complex. It just clicked the other day, and I swear some of these things like they unravel over like a year, and I'll understand it more. But like that's the power of having us live these lies. Like even the Starbucks logo, it's a deep occult thing. We're sipping this poison and whatever. We got the logo. We're like, oh no, I love Starbucks. That is living a lie vibrationally, and it's taking away our true powers in this deep, weird way. But we don't understand it because we don't understand how deep we are, these beings of vibration and whatnot. So either way, yeah, the U.S. government experiments on the weather on us and other stuff. And in the movie in the 70s, in Frankenskies in the 1970s, this reporter exposes that in St. Louis, the Air Force experimented on the ghettos of St. Louis and sprayed zinc cadmium sulfide, radioactive zinc cadmium sulfide. So it's basically radioactive cadmium. They outfitted jets and sprayed it over the ghettos of St. Louis. They outfitted station wagons and sprayed it at the ground level and sprayed it on the rooftops. And they wanted to see how many children would basically die from it. They wanted to see the impacts of on their lungs of this radioactive substance, you know. So that when all of this starts to unravel, I'm like, did we even win World War II? Like, who's really in charge of our country and all this sort of stuff? That's another rabbit hole. You know, it's deep, and I'm sure there's a battle for good and evil at the very top and whatnot. But like, there's a lot of nefarious, weird stuff going on. And if you just start to look in your skies, you can see it on a beautiful day. The energy is so great, and it's dark blue skies. The planes have nothing coming out of them. They're still out there here and there, where, I mean, depending on where you are, you know, the clouds are white and fluffy and beautiful. And on those other days when they're totally doing all their nonsense, there's a lot of disgusting energy in the sky. And I mean, you can see all of this stuff mixing together, planes doing all these different, that they shouldn't even be doing, you know, and that can really lead you to the truth. So for the orgonite thing, I just want to say, like, anything has power if we give it, you know, and those things are beautiful. And I've seen cloudbusters work and whatnot. And Wilhelm Reich, he died for his amazing research. So I'm not going to dismantle it completely. I just don't want people giving away their powers when they could be, you know, sharing my movie.
Was he murdered?
Yeah, he was put in jail by the FDA, and he came out not alive.
Oh man, wow.
I mean, I didn't mean to joke about that. So he wrote books on like orgasm energy and curing cancer and stuff, and he's someone really special. To really understand him, I think like he was snuffed out before people could completely unravel his work. But it is something. Like, for instance, when we do a rain dance, like as a cultural, like tribal, like believing in our true powers thing, we do the rain dance and it rains.
Mm-hmm.
We are calling in to the cosmos and God and the universe and Gaia and everything. We're calling in, hey, we're in a drought and there's supposed to be a balance here. So let's bring it into balance. And like the organic energy and the etheric energy and the positive negative ions, and like they know that there needs to be a balance and there's too much drought and the rain will come in and balance it out. That's kind of like the orgonite is kind of like a little cloudbuster, and the cloudbusters are like intention amplifiers. So if you like really want it to be amplified to get the rain with the cloudbuster, that's what that is. It's your intention being amplified. But essentially all we need to do is have the understanding of our true intentions and dance it out with some other people that know the true intentions, and like we can, you know, make it rain just the same. I just don't want people like to put a orgonite pyramid next to their cell tower and think that everything's gravy. It's not.
Right. Yeah. I think that it might have some effect to it, but I also think that it has, they're doing a lot that we're not going to be able to combat it. I see some of these cloudbusters. I've had Mitch the Orgone Donor on way back when, episode 29, and he makes this huge thing with these 5-gallon buckets, and I mean they're just completely huge. And I mean, I think that's probably having some effect, but I don't think that the smaller things, maybe in our households, you know, I have a orgone little puck that I keep in between me and my cell phone when I go to sleep. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. It seems that I have a more refreshing sleep. I don't know that that's because of that, but hey, I like to do it all the same anyway. So you like to get into a little bit deeper. You said you like to talk to people on their level, and I am very much into the belief of interdimensionals, and that there's a frequency that these beings, this parasite that has invaded our universe, is actually a low frequency. Some might call demons. I myself use that term, but they're kind of like static, that when you turn on your TV and you have the static, that's kind of what they are. They're the checkerboards of the Freemasons, if you will, but like a living version of it. So it's always moving just a little bit. And they are trying to overlay our universe with metals and electromagnetic frequencies that will allow them to actually exist here, because they've been doing this moving in process, it seems, since we were talking about World War II, talking about 9/11. Was 9/11 maybe the event where they took over the United States government? I mean, that's maybe the 2001 election is maybe when they took over the United States government, something to this effect. It's, just coming to me, thoughts that are coming to me right now. And these things, so I've gotten a download before that the planes that we see in our skies that are doing these chemtrails, that they aren't, any humans are not in control of it, that it's always been this way in our universe, that the matrix itself that we live inside, it's a living thing, so to speak, and that they've always been just going across the sky to give us an appearance of what's outside of this place, but it's just there to like hold up the projector. If you were going to use a projector, for your movie, so to say, you would need something to project it on, right? You would need a wall. Well, instead of using a physical wall, they use this wall of metals and electromagnetic frequencies like R2D2 to be able to shoot then with satellites, project something out there, so that we're seeing something that isn't actually real. Now, I don't know if it's always been that way, but that it's been that way for a long time. And we have Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. They bring up the little trinkets that they find in South America and other places around the world, where there are little golden planes that they made. And how did they know what a plane looked like way back when? Well, maybe because they saw the chemtrail planes, because maybe they've just been doing it that long. So what is your take on these possible interdimensionals that are trying to overtake our world?
That's really fascinating. I've also seen what seems to be holographic planes projected in front of the chemtrails, and I've never been able to fully wrap my head around it, but I've definitely seen this. I've been on like a mountainside where I worked on a farm for a whole season, and these chemtrail planes come over, and you can't see them until they're at a certain angle, as if you're not looking at the projector screen until you see this certain angle, and then there they are, but they're so close. You've got to be able to see them. You should be able to see them. And when you do see them, they're flat, they're projections, so like maybe the chemtrails are there the whole time, but they want to project a plane in front of it to confuse the humans. That, what you said, is starting to add to my long-standing, weird, ever evolving theory. When I first got onto chemtrails, a lot of people were trying to convince me, and I was trying to convince myself and understand what the heck is really going on. There's so many different rabbit holes. One of them was they must be blocking the sunset because they're hiding Planet X and Nibiru. One of them was that they must be terraforming the planet so that reptilians can move in and stuff like that. And a lot of these conspiracies, I think, were like disinformation, psyop kind of things. Like, the more confusion, the better in these really critical conspiracies, especially like when you're first researching and you've got all these different potentials for truth and you're not given enough information. It's easy to just forget it, throw it back on the back burner and live your life and be like, well, I don't know. Like even kids nowadays, I mean, kids is kind of a loose term for me, I guess, because I'm getting older. But the youth nowadays, if you try to talk to them about 9/11, people in their 20s or something, they're just like, I've heard both sides and I wasn't there. And if I look it up on Google, I'm going to be giving a flood of information on both sides. How am I to come to a conclusion? And that's how they do it. It's information overload, and then how are you going to come to a concrete, especially becoming an activist and really get behind something. So in the chemtrail space with all of that, I do think there is a terraforming. I've thought about it long and hard. I mean, I'll take like a boiling hot bath and dump Epsom salts in it, and that's one of my grounding techniques, with like essential oils or whatever, and just really like start. I mean, I'm in there, my heart's pounding, I'm sweating, like the saunas and stuff. I'll try to really think these things through in a really, like when I'm fasting, I have clarity. I try to find a really clear space when I'm trying to get a download of some sort and get to some understanding of some level. And there is a terraforming going on of the human species, I believe. People are wearing these, they're covering their faces. They're not able to breathe as much oxygen as before. Our bodies are being adapted to not breathing as much oxygen. We're being terraformed. The vessel through which our soul lives is being terraformed through genetic alteration, through embedding.
That's a great way of putting it.
Thanks. Through embedding a bunch of metal in us, okay, and then putting metal all around us. There's fluoride in our freaking water, and that's from aluminum industry. So you get aluminum in us, other means, even our deodorant, but also the air. And then you get the fluoride and aluminum mixing in our brains, and they rebond and have chemical reactions in our brains, and that's Alzheimer's and dementia and what have you. But fast forward another few generations, and I do believe a 5G environment is going to decimate, by design, is going to decimate the next generation's ability to procreate, because these carrier waves that are shrunk down. So we're in a soup of data right now already. Okay, we've got carrier waves going through us from our phone and our Wi-Fi and AM and radio, FM radio waves. But all of these waves of information, which is light that we can't see, that's carrying information, all of this light or carrier waves all around us, all this data all around us, like cell phone reception and AM radio waves, all of these waves of light are really big. They don't impact us humans that are like 5 feet tall, with cells that are like a nanometer or whatever, and our sperm cells are a certain size and all this. Our ovaries are a certain size, they're measured in like nanometers and millimeters and whatnot. But now the 5G is so intrusive. It's not like any other technology, and it was designed to be able to burn skin. It was created to make a frequency fence in Afghanistan. It's called an active denial system. That's why the millimeter carrier wave even existed, even created, was to tune to a certain frequency to burn people's skin. Now it's being tuned now to carry information, and it doesn't burn your skin. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. People would understand, this is bogus. But it does absorb into our bodies when it hits us, and it's measured in millimeters, and it's going to wreak havoc on our reproductive organs. I do believe. I hope I'm wrong. Trust me. I pray to God I'm wrong. But at the end of the day, I think that a whole generation conceived, born and raised in a 5G environment, also giving into all this nonsense and getting experimented on in every which way with all this nonsense that's been going on for a couple of years, they're going to be genetically terraformed, whatever, to hold a different vibration. Like the human soul is a high freaking vibration, man. And at one point, I've seen this like National Geographic or Time magazine cover, like in my when I was meditating, and it says, "Live forever to save humanity." Right? It's trickery. They want people to be convinced that they don't have an eternal soul, and if they die on Earth, they don't pass down the next generation through children or whatever. They're going to trick people that they need to live forever through transfer of consciousness into robotic versions of themselves. And when transfer of consciousness is a thing, then other consciousnesses can get transferred into these vessels. Boom, Invisible Rainbow, love the book, Arthur Furstenberg. Yeah, that
I got it after you recommended it on one of the podcasts I heard you on. I was like, I am getting that book because I know it's a thing already, and I'm like, oh, someone's already detailed this. Let me go get that. So yeah, thank you.
And I'm so glad that Furstenberg dug into that, because that started all these other juices flowing and rabbit holes and whatnot. Sometimes it just takes one person explaining it a different way for me to seal it different and to have all these other neural pathways like connecting dots and all this sort of stuff. And after I got his book, I actually went on a tirade of book buyings recently, and I'm really happy to have a lot of physical, cool, like conspiracy kind of minded books in my world that I never
I think
had
they're going to be
before.
important in the coming future.
Yeah, I do think so too. And the word Kindle, it's like kindling, like the digitization of books and whatnot. I'm not buying it, and I want to have physical things. I mean, for me, in my world, I was living with some children, and when they did the lockdowns and the bookstores closed, locked down, and the libraries locked down, and their schools were locked down, we were just staring at each other like, what do we do now? And their literal channel, their flow, their like river of information, which was all these accesses of streams of information from like bookstores and all this stuff, everything was basically constricted to like whatever we can find on Amazon Prime, Netflix. It was just like, at that point, I was like, whoa, we got to start getting books and have them around, and board games and whatever else we can to preserve our old world. So I hope I kind of explained that terraforming thing. But I think the long-term agenda is to basically give these demonic forces, maybe even Satan and stuff. Part of this came from this guy Nicholson, 1980. There's a YouTube guy that does amazing videos, and he brought this idea into my consciousness about the biggest desire for the dark forces is to bring demonic forces and maybe even Satan, to give them a body, to transfer these dark consciousnesses. Because God cast them down, they're not allowed to have bodies because they've been bad boys. You know what I mean? They've been bad, and they're not allowed to have bodies, and that's why they try to influence us or whatever. But that would be their ultimate revenge, is to get bodies, and then to get us like suspended animation in some like transhumanism dystopia where we don't have ascension because they've locked us in by blocking the sun and getting us all robotic and what have you.
Well, I love that you say that, tied in with the 5G. I think that I always thought that Project Bluebeam was nonsense, that it's been around for 50 years. People have been talking about it. And I'm like, what operation gets talked about in the conspiracy theory community before it happens? And it's been out there for 50 years now. And there's always, the alien invasion, and it's always been like, no, it's nonsense. And now all of a sudden, I had the thought a couple of weeks ago, like, how would they do it? Oh, 5G, they would appear to be walking amongst us. It's not going to be that there are some ships in our skies. No, they're going to be projected into our universe using the 5G, the exactness of the 5G. That's how they're going to trick us into giving them our bodies. They're going to be very scary in our face, and they're going to be looking like things that we've never seen before, and we're going to be very scared. It's kind of like going into the astral world for the first time, whether through psychedelics or through astral travel itself, lucid dreaming, any number of things. The first time you do it, you exit your body. It's very weird. It's very scary. You're in the astral world and you're not sure yourself. So this happens on a mass scale to a lot of people at once. A lot of people will be scared out of their bodies. They'll be like, take it, just don't, as long as it's going to be okay, just take it. So it's an interesting tie-in how all those things are happening right now. And you said that Georgia, so you have a line of silver. Oh, wait a second. I did want to get Mimi in here. Never mind. She doesn't want to get in. But she had this idea that when you started that, you said you saw the holographic projections, that you could only see it from a certain angle. And she had the idea a while back, which is what had her ask me the question, is that these things were somehow opening a portal from to allow things to enter our dimension, like, because we would see ones that if you looked at it at the correct angle, it looked like it was depth, that it was like coming towards you. But if you looked at it from the side, it just looks like it's going across the sky. But if you get that right angle, it looks like it has depth to it. And that she thought that maybe it's like tearing a fabric in our reality, so to speak, to allow these things, something to come in, which is super interesting. So what's your thoughts on that? Is it possible that they could be maybe not tearing a fabric in reality, but maybe bringing their reality into ours through these different chemicals that they're spraying?
Well, definitely, because there's parallel timelines of different consciousnesses, and we're supposed to be on elevating timeline. I think they've been holding this timeline back. So there's other timelines that are intersecting with us, and they're trying to merge us with lower vibrational timelines, I believe, by maintaining our frequency and dismantling the evolutionary process, which is supposed to be like an exponential curve. For the wormholes or whatever in the sky and whatnot, I've played with the idea of even like CERN and HAARP being interrelated and whatnot, because when they do zap the sky, it does seem like portals sometimes open. Because I've seen your pictures of clouds of gnarly looking stuff, but when they zap the crap out of the sky, I have seen like demonic faces. It's not rainbows and bunny rabbits when they're doing their evil bidding. It's interesting. And also, just to, not that her ideas aren't valid, but sometimes there's these rockets, like there's stations all over the freaking country. Like to fathom how deep the program is, it's unreal. I mean, even the power plants that have moisture plumes coming off of them, they work with those clouds and put chemicals in with them. And this is a whole system in the United States to manage our hydrological system. It's unreal. And these Air Force bases, or whatever you want to call them, these stations are oftentimes way closer than we could even fathom. Like they're 20 miles over there, you know, and they have ground-based rockets. There's a barium release rocket that's like a rocket that has wings, and it's just got a barium like canister on it, and it's going from the ground like almost straight up and releasing the plume as it goes up. And from a certain angle, it doesn't have that 3 dimensions because it's going up, if that makes sense, as to like what she could be seeing. Because I have seen things at certain angles, and then I get a totally different aspect of it. Like I go on a road trip and I'm like, oh, I'm on the other side of that mountain now. I'm like, oh my gosh. Or I'm on top of the mountain now, seeing it come up, and I'm like, holy geez. It's actually that barium release rocket, because they're working in 3D, you know, and we're just looking up at it.
Yeah.
And they've got so much space to work with, and they're mixing plumes of chemicals. And then actually something that's fascinating is they'll have a chemical that's negatively charged, and then the chemical that's positively charged. And then they have those things attracting to each other and mixing, and then they're zapping them with intersecting radio waves, like microwaves in the sky. It's wild.
Yeah, that's crazy that they're just releasing barium like that into our skies just to shoot off. So I brought up here, anyone watching the video, I brought up here some pictures of the sky that I've taken. I mean, I have some incredible ones, not that way. I have some incredible ones that are like, this one's like a half a face right here. You can kind of say it's coming out that way. This one's like looking upwards, but this one right here, so sometimes when I look at these clouds, it really looks like that there's something there manipulating what is available for them. Now this one, it kind of looks like a shark is like battling some kind of like samurai, and in this, like I mean, you can clearly see eyes and a little piece of hair or something, and it's holding something. And then there's like a silver surfer shark. Like, are these real things? Is this what the conspiracy theorists talk about when they say Project Bluebeam? Is this completely false, or is maybe this something that's actually projecting itself here, using what's in our atmosphere to, maybe it's unknowingly being seen because people just don't look up?
That's fascinating. And what you said earlier about the ancients, and possibly maybe what you're getting at is like all of what we see as the Milky Way galaxy is just a projection onto chemtrails, right? That's something worth adding to my my knowledge, my my understanding of it all, and to keep that in my pocket. For the blue beam, well, I think that when they do evil stuff, there's evil energy, and that gets expressed in the haze as they do their evil bidding and whatnot. And then on like a beautiful day, that's why we're seeing freaking bunny rabbits and like elves and stuff, because there's actually like that good positive energy, and it's being expressed in the water and the clouds and whatnot. I think blue beam will be a lot more in our face. Have you ever seen the Norway spiral? That's a very interesting thing, but it's this spinning. I don't think so. It's this weird Project Blue Beam. I encourage you to look it up. The Norway spiral on YouTube. They caught it, And the official explanation was that it was a Russian rocket that was out of control. It doesn't look anything like that. It's an experimental blue beam weird kind of thing in Norway that a lot of people caught on camera.
Oh yes, I've seen this
And
before.
it's just this spiral that just keeps going and going. I think that if there is a Project Bluebeam, it'll be more in our face. Yeah, that thing. It just keeps spiraling, unraveling. You know, I mean, like what could that? I mean, what could that really be? Some sort of experiment. I think if we do see a Bluebeam, it'll be something where they get to, you know, okay, the New World Order Agenda 2030. They want us under this Klaus Schwab, and maybe they do want some big event to get humanity unified. And if it was like a planet passing by that made all these crazy earthquakes, you know, something like that, then they can make the planet go by and then make it chemtrailed everywhere so only some people saw the planet anyways and put it on the news for everybody else or whatever. It'd be pretty easy. And then they could earthquake the crap out of everybody with HAARP and then dismantle a lot of regions and then have the UN come put everybody under one world government. I don't know how they're going to exactly put everyone under one world government or if they're going to. I know Europe right now is totally rioting the new measures and whatnot, and it's getting weird everywhere. And what's very strategic of them is we're not under the same boot of authority all at once. Like it's different everywhere. Where I'm at is different than the next county over. The next town over is different. So we can't all come together in solidarity for humanity and fight the same thing because we're not experiencing the same thing at once, which is smart. It's very smart. But yeah, for the Bluebeam, I don't really know. And why they tell us about it, that you mentioned that. Sometimes there's a disclosure element. Sometimes they have to tell us because we are the creator gods and we have to be informed to create what they want us to create and to know what's what and whatnot. There's some sort of karmic law and there is a disclosure and it comes out through the predictive programming, the movies and what have you. But I do think the powers that be, they have to kind of let us know so that we are the victims of our own bidding kind of thing.
Oh, wow. As we wind down here, I want to ask about your upcoming movie, Frankenskies 2. Do you have a time release window that you want to get it out by?
I'd love to have it out this time next year. I've got some great interviews, and my goal is to, in the spring, to travel around the United States and to go to farmers markets, a lot of places, and just hammer it home that so many people know about this. Interview normal people about, you know, like tell us about when you first learned about chemtrails. Like don't even ask a random person like what they know about it. Just say, tell me about when you first learned about chemtrails. You know, if you ask a farmer that, they'll give you the most genuine answer because they all know it's the consciousness thinks the overarching consciousness across everybody thinks that nobody knows about it. But everyone does, and that's really empowering and inspiring to raise that vibe. So I definitely want that in the movie, but also Bill Gates is looking to finally have this experiment to dim the sun. He wanted to do it. Yeah, he wanted to do it in Tucson, Arizona in 2018. I had this big conference and protest, and they put the experiment on hiatus. And now they've moved it to Sweden, and they have Greta Thunberg as the opposition, but really the opposition is controlled because they're just asking for governance through the UN and to deploy it all at once and to do it smart and safe or whatever. But geoengineering is dimming our sun with chemtrails and making it so we get less sunlight to supposedly slow down global warming, which is a big sham in and of itself. So this experiment is supposed to happen in Kiruna, which is a place in Sweden where the sun doesn't go down, in June of next year. It was supposed to happen this year. And what was really fascinating is more people heard that it was being canceled than even heard that, you know, the media really ramped it up and said, Bill Gates' sun dimming experiment is canceled. And that was like a mind control thing of it itself, you know, it's so fascinating. So anytime I bring it to people's light, they're like, oh no, that was canceled. It'll get canceled again. We don't need to do anything about it. Kind of, it's easy to kind of like quell the activists nowadays. Oh, and earlier you said like, why aren't people talking about chemtrails anymore? It's so genius what they've done. No, chemtrails was a big deal and it was impacting everyone, but kind of, sort of. This new nonsense going on over the past couple of years, it's impacting everybody. Like people are losing their jobs, families are being split in half, we're being intruded upon, and we may be forced to get really intruded upon, and we got to really ask these big questions. And kind of the chemtrails are on the back burner for everyone's mentality. And it's like if I'm out there on the street right now, I'm holding a sign that says breath is life, or something like that. And I am kind of referencing chemtrails in my approach, but at the end of the day, people kind of get bumped down on their Maslow's hierarchy of needs when something so is happening to such a degree where everyone's embracing fear and whatnot, and even our neighbors and stuff. And so we're in a weird spot where not everyone's giving all the other conspiracies or truths their due justice, and it's interesting. So we have to kind of step up as activists, you and I, and really plant those seeds. And I thank you so much for planting those seeds of truth, because the soil is becoming so fertile nowadays in this empire of lies that all those seeds can potentially germinate and blossom, just like we did at one point.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I want to thank you for all the seeds that you're planting. For the chemtrails, what are the three chemicals? What's it? Aluminum, barium, and
aluminum, barium, and strontium are the primary chemicals, and that goes back to the patents and the rainwater analysis and people testing their hair and their blood. And that's kind of hidden in plain sight. If you just do the research, it's there. But also there's others like lithium and lead and mercury and cadmium and heavier metals and whatnot. Sometimes it just ends up being what comes out of burned coal, all these different heavy metals that come out of burned coal. It seems like the Department of Energy with the burned coal, they're working with the Air Force, and they're maybe supplying those chemical constituents. And if they want to just filter out the aluminum and barium and mix it together, they can, but also they can just dump that coal fly ash in the atmosphere, and that's got titanium and all sorts of crap in it and whatnot. So when people test the rainwater and send it in after a lot of chemtrail spraying, oftentimes it is a lot of aluminum, barium, strontium, and we need to know that, and that's the primary. But there's also all sorts of stuff. Like I said, in St. Louis, they're spraying, something different, cadmium. So
in your movie, they talk about Agent Orange as well. Over where was it? Forget exactly.
That was Vietnam, Agent Orange.
Vietnam, okay.
And yeah, all sorts of different chemicals being aerosolized, DDT and what have you. And it's up to us to empower ourselves and to detox from these things and to know what we're dealing with so that we can empower everyone else with the truth, right?
All right. So when the fan blades are spinning, I heard you say this before. It was very interesting because it just clicked for me, because a lot of people will say that, oh, it's just a contrail. It is turning cold air hot, or something, hot air cold, whatever the reason they give, and that's what it is. So what's actually happening with those engines? Is it doing something like that?
With the engines, no. So like my dad was a pilot, and we would go through like a pack of seagulls, and they don't get cooked. They're just bloody. There's no singed feathers. They're just like they're chomped up in that big fan blade. So the jet fuel that you put into the plane that is stored in the wings, there's not really that much altogether, thinking about flying to Australia or something. So the jet fuel, I've come to believe, is primarily used to take off and land. And then I've come to believe that maybe, this is a new thing, that maybe there's air compressor built in that helps to spin the turbine. But either way, the spinning of the turbine is very efficient. This isn't an F-16, this isn't Top Gun. We're not coming and going from aircraft carriers or whatever. This is very efficient engines, and this is just a big turbine spinning. And when they turn them on the ground level, you walk by, you don't get burned by it. This isn't freaking Top Gun,
It'd be melting the whole runway.
Right. So it's just a turbo fan. They're called high bypass turbofan jet engines, created in 1940, and it took them 20 years to make them really efficient. And once you get them going, they're just freaking pushing the air through to create lift over the wings, just like a propeller would. And this clicked just recently, man. Like, I'm just like trying to explain it to people, and there's so much like, well, I'm not up there. How do I know what the humidity and the barometric pressure and the temperature and da-da-da? It's not blasting hot air. It's not. Like, you get a wing side seat on an airplane and you watch those things, they're not blasting out hot air. You can sit there the whole trip. I've flown from Virginia to San Diego so many times. I've gotten wing side seats. You sit there, there's no hot air, there's no contrail, nothing's coming out of that, right? It's only these like drones and barium release rockets and all these things that are outfit, and maybe these like extraterrestrial, interdimensional, beings that are coming through portals and spraying something, and then we're projecting and we're maybe working together. I have no idea. But the idea of the contrail is a big con. It's a confusion tactic, disinformation, dualizing falsehoods. It's complicated, but it's brainwashing, and it's really gotten us good. But we're breaking out of the trance.
Yeah, yes, sir. So you have this line of clothing that is silver based, right? So it's called Spiro. Is that correct?
Yeah, sparrow, Spero, like a Latin word, like spero, or Spanish. It means I hope in Spanish, and Italian means hope. In French, I think it's a derivative of I hope. In Latin, it means hope or to hope. And the goal is to bring hope to the next generation. It's like wearing a cotton t-shirt at the beach, right? You go out in the sun and you don't get burned. You go out in the sun the next day, you don't get burned. You go out in the sun the next day, you don't get burned. If you're out there in your bare skin, on day 3, you'd be totally cooked, right? It's like that when you're walking by the cell tower. The silver blocks that kind of light. Maybe a little bit comes through, like you look through the cotton shirt, you see a little bit of sunlight gets through, but not enough to get you burned. And that's the whole concept, is like you were wearing the silver clothing, and it protects like 99% of this light that would otherwise be accumulating and slowly giving you problems, down the line, like what, I don't want to like be a fearmonger, but radiation leads to problems. So less is more when it comes to radiation, especially if you're a child or looking to increase your sperm count or whatever. So silver blocks it. So does lead, so does copper, and so does steel. But silver's the best one for weaving into a fabric and wearing it on our clothes. I think that if you can get your hands on lead-based paint, children were not eating that stuff. I've gone down that rabbit hole. When we go to the gas tank, it says unleaded because the gasoline was leaded. And the fumes even had lead in it, dude. So all of the neighborhoods were getting toxic lead spewed out by all these cars. And the petroleum industry knew they were poisoning children and people, especially the canaries in the coal mine. The children that are out there getting the exhaust on them, and they're younger, they're showing the impact. So they knew in their think tanks that 5G was going to come down and cripple humanity and have the surveillance system and all this other stuff. And they said, look, we can't have lead paint, lead walls. They'll be able to protect themselves. So they got the lead out by blaming the kids, and then snuck in the unleaded gasoline. And nobody noticed that big switch over.
Yeah, that's a huge psyop. Kids eating paint. Like I've never seen a kid eating paint. Maybe finger paint once in preschool, tasting it to see what it's like, but that's just not happening. So
it's amazing. The truth. It's so fun.
Yeah, that's great right there. I never even thought about that, because gasoline does smell good when you're a kid. I've ran out to smell the gas, when my dad's taking off in the morning. I would go out there, it was a pleasant smell. So maybe it was something to that effect. I don't know. But you were saying something that you had to double your the strength of silver in these bags as of recently, since the lockdowns or so began. And then just recently, Georgia, you had to actually triple the protection in order to get it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had these Faraday phone bags that kill your signal of your phone when you put them in these bags made of silver. And they worked all over the world. And then right when the lockdowns happened in March of last year, people are contacting me. I think the first person actually contacted me from might have been Savannah. It was somewhere in Georgia. And then the next one was Flint, Michigan, and then Fort Lauderdale, and then LA. And then I was like, what is going on? These phone bags all of a sudden didn't work. They're working for years. And so I had to double line the bags, and everyone was happy again. Their phone is dead inside the bags, right? Well, then right when the Delta variant, I don't think that's a keyword, but either way, when all this nonsense started unraveling recently with this new surge, people in major cities started contacting me and saying, all of a sudden, my precious phone bag, because people love these things, like it's like an accessory for their precious phone. People love the phone so much, and this is like their way to unplug from it, but have it still by their side, because nobody really wants to unplug from their precious. So I had to triple it up, man. So now I've got 3 layered bags for people that are living in the city and have, it's essentially Verizon. Verizon has all of these iPhones on their network, And everyone, Verizon 8, whatever it may be, if it's on the Verizon network, they're getting it to propagate this new bandwidth, the 5G high band, which there's high band, low band, mid band 5G for Sprint and all these different telecom providers in the United States, and even around the world. They're different. They have to like auction from the FCC or whoever, and then buy these certain bandwidths, which is actually a measurable range of frequency in millimeters and stuff nowadays. And so when they auctioned it off, Verizon got the fastest one. So the 5G that we're all worried about is like Verizon. And I think Verizon will end up essentially becoming nationalized, and everything will become one national telecom agency eventually to get all this really wrapped up, because they're talking about how are they going to make planes be able to, like, it's interfering with airplanes, this 5G network. Like, there's a lot of interference.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, the Verizon and the iPhones, and any Verizon iPhone is pushing the signal along now and propagating the wave like a little cell tower would. So it's pushing this mesh system of the 5G to get it to work. And so, I mean, if you've got a Samsung phone, my girlfriend has a Samsung smartphone, and the single layer bag works for her. And so it shows how little radiation some of these phones are putting off compared to how much the other ones are putting off. But I've got it all. I mean, I discontinued the single layer bags, but the double layer bags are great for almost everybody. And if you need a triple layer bag, honestly, and I don't think this is the best sales pitch, but I think you should get a different phone. Like get a different phone, get a Samsung or something, because your phone's emitting exponentially more radiation than before, and maybe even been showing signs of sickness, like loss of taste, which has been going around, which has never gone around.
I had the loss of smell, loss of taste for 2 weeks or so, and it actually, I felt like I could smell the mucus within my own brain or my own head, and that was all I could smell.
Interesting. Well, food for thought, loss of taste is a radiation sickness symptom. And if we were exposed to low level radiation, increased levels, our bodies would adjust, but we would show signs of like adjusting to it, which could be that, you know. So just food for thought for everyone out there as we're being, I mean, a lot of people are just taking authority as truth. Whatever they say right now, they just take it hook, line, and sinker. Personally, I'm like the opposite. Whatever they say right now, I'm like, okay, opposite day. Let's see what the real truth behind that is. And I go digging kind of thing. But there's this phrase that I like to say, some people prefer to take authority as the truth. Others take truth as the authority, and the choice is yours, you know, whichever side you want to pick.
Oh, that's a good one. So you have provided us with so much different ways of thinking. You're obviously very knowledgeable in very many different topics, and we could go on and on about so many different things. The organic farm, I mean, we could have got into that. We could have so many different things, and you already mentioned 2 great grounding techniques. Is there one thing above all that you recommend for everybody? You know, for myself, we're talking about these heavy metals that we're intaking. I tell everybody that I don't tell everybody to do it. I'll tell everybody what I did, that I use zeolite every morning. I've been using that for the last 2 months or so, and I feel a huge difference in myself. I've also been using Paracel in order to clear my body of parasites, and the difference that it made in me was so drastic that I would recommend those 2 things blindly to people that maybe look into it, talk to whoever you need to talk to make sure that it's okay for you. But those 2 things seem pretty safe to me. What is, in your opinion, the most important, or one of the most important things that we can all be doing in order to ground ourselves, to make ourselves the best humans that we can be, you know, getting our biological systems in line with where we should be?
I have the answer to that, and I would love to answer your question. First, I want to recommend a couple things. One is last year I broke my arm and I had to get surgery, and they gave me all this. I mean, they gave me fentanyl when I got my arm set. They gave me oxys when I was in the hospital for a week, and I think that I was unable to absorb minerals. So recently, I've been taking this, just like a pill a day of this. It's called Irish sea moss, but the pills that I've gotten recently are Irish sea moss with burdock root and bladderwrack, organic. And Irish sea moss has like 96 minerals in it, and there's only like 110 or something that our body needs. It's bioavailable minerals, and it's really been making me feel so much more energized and healthy, and being able to like put on muscles and stuff. I think mineralization is so important. We're all mineral deficient. So wild. Also, something that I've incorporated into my life over the past few years that I cannot stress enough. I think it's amazing. I don't expect everyone to do this, but we have a gut biome, and that gut biome communicates with our mouth biome, which communicates with our brain biome, this whole thing that probably aligns our chakras and connects our soul to ourselves and all this sort of stuff. Either way, it's electrical, and it needs to be alive. And hitting your mouth with mouthwash and chemicals and fluoride and stuff, it's not the smartest thing to do, I don't think. And so what I do in the morning, well, I drink a big glass of water first thing in the morning, but also I rinse my mouth with coconut oil. Every single day I do it.
That's interesting.
And what the coconut oil does, it's oil pulling, and it pulls out metals and stuff. But the biggest thing that the coconut oil does is it balances your mouth biome. It pulls out bad bacteria and leaves in good bacteria. And I've had, literally, no joke, totally true story, I had 2 cavities, big cavities on each side. I got one drilled out, and my mouth hurt too bad. I didn't want to do it. And I rinsed my mouth with coconut oil for like 3 weeks, and it literally, I watched the thing go away. It's gone. The cavity.
Wait, so you just rinse like you do with mouthwash? You just instead
Yeah,
use
for like 10
coconut?
minutes. I mean, your mouth is
Okay.
warm, so it makes it soft. It makes it liquid, and then you
Okay.
swish it, and it actually smells like bad bacteria when you spit it out. And then you can just brush your teeth if you want. I'll substitute it for brushing in the morning sometimes, and I'll go like a day or whatever, not brushing.
I'm gonna start that this week.
Whatever. It's amazing. So to answer your question, and sorry to be like
No, take your time.
spaz and all that, but I wanted to get some of this out, all of this out that I can for your awesome listeners. This sounds so simple, and I challenge anybody to do this too. And I have on Facebook, I've got like 55,000 followers, and I've got an Instagram, and I've got a BitChute, and I've got actually everything you could think of now, because I got my one platform got pulled, and the other ones I'm on everything. I've got actualactivists.com, got my sparrowgear.com, I've got an online business. I'm leading the world in EMF protection. There's like 20 companies out there, and I'm leading it in online, on my online business. I'm online all the time.
Wow.
Okay? I'm on the internet. I'm doing a podcast with you right now on the internet. I'm totally dialed in. I'm on there all the time. Okay. The biggest thing for grounding, and I'm super ungrounded and learning about grounding, and it's very, very important to get in tune and to not be ungrounded. You know, earthing and all that stuff is so important. I want to make grounding shoes one day. That'll be a cool project during my course as an activist, if I can pull that off. So I bookend each day. So, dude, if you can do 2 hours, oh my God. If you can do 2 hours before bed with no screen, no devices, good luck. But try 1 hour. 1 hour as you wake up and 1 hour as you go to sleep. So wake up in the morning and don't look at your phone. Don't look at your computer. Don't look at a computer screen for like an hour, man. Like, get up, have your thoughts, take your shower, do whatever you got to do. Play with your animals. I don't know what your life consists of, but don't look at your phone. I know you want to do it. Oh my gosh, I know you want to do it so bad. But that screen puts you in a new place. It's like flickering, and it's got blue light, and it tells your body, your nervous system. It tells it so much that it's beyond. I could get into it for a whole show. And then at night, same thing. I try to do 2 hours, man. I wake up. If I wake up at 6, I don't look at the screen for 2 hours. You know, and 2 hours before bed. If you can do 3 hours or 4 hours, you know, it is so grounding to have a balance. That screen, those emails, all that stuff is going to be there. It's going to be there, I swear, and you'll get to it. But if you can give your body that time to calibrate and wake up to the sunlight, to the morning light, and all that sort of stuff, it'll do wonders for your spiritual development. I swear it. That's all I have to say.
Wow, that is a simple yet effective technique, I'm sure. And like you said, actualactivist.com, sparrowgear.com or sparrowgear.com. We will have the links in the description for all your different social medias and websites, of course. Is there any other thing that you would like to leave the audience with before we part ways here?
No, aside from that, and I appreciate you and everything, and if anybody can support what you're doing, I encourage that 100%, because being an activist is not always paying the bills and whatnot. Any support, even if it's sharing your podcast, please show Todd your support and what have you. The last note I want to leave it on is that everyone can and could and should and very well will be in their own way an activist in this, especially in this new world that we're in. And I want to inspire everyone to speak their truth. You never know, like your neighbor could be on the same page as you for one, you know, and that camaraderie could be built today, for instance, and you don't realize it, but all you have to do is plant that seed of truth. If you can knit for truth, you know, if you're a good photographer, then, you know, take some amazing photos of some theme and share your artistic talents with the world, like express yourself and shine that light. We need the poets, we need the artists, we need the filmmakers. I mean, when I say like representing truth, I don't just mean conspiracies. I mean like the light, you know, like shine that light and be inspiring for the world, because we need you. We need your creativity and your humanity, and everyone can be human in all this. There's this slogan that I have, human for life, and I hope everyone can embrace that. It means a lot. It means not just becoming a robot, but it means like being a human while we're here. And that means community and inspirational, artistic stuff. So thank you so much. And thanks for showing your soul, brother, and contacting me and being, you know, your true authentic self. And I hope everyone can follow in that example.
Well, thank you so much, my friend. And thank you for all that you do. That was, I'm sure, a difficult task to put together that movie and to put together the website, to be the leading EMF guy, and all the things that you do. I mean, it is not easy, but someone's got to do it. And if once we all realize that we're the ones that have to do it, you know, we take the first step in our own lives, then it'll just find its way out. All the truth will just come to light, like you're saying. All the love and the positivity in all forms, so many different forms, musically, poetically, all those things. That's how we heal, is seeing the beauty in all things. So I want to thank you again for coming on, my friend. We'll say goodbye to our audience. Goodbye, everybody. We will talk to you later.